media, Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And we hope you'll stick around because you've got Portia on TV and everyone.
You're here. We have a lot to get to this afternoon, but remember, we are live streaming on all of our social media platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, as well as our free Fox Local app. Let's get straight to our headlines right now, and let's take you to Gwinnett County, where a person was found dead inside of a Grayson home. This was a homicide investigation after a woman was found shot to death inside that home in Grayson. Gwinnett County police officers were called to a home on Wilkerson Way. This was on Sunday morning around 8:40 a.m. after a neighbor discovered a body inside the house. When officers arrived, investigators say they found a woman dead from an apparent gunshot wound. Detectives remained at the scene for hours as crime scene investigators worked to piece together what happened inside of the home. You're looking at some video that our Fox 5 photojournalist shot yesterday while police were still out there investigating. And you can actually see at one point several large bags of evidence being removed from the house, while a white vehicle parked out front was also towed from the scene. Police say one person has been taken into custody in connection with the shooting, though authorities have not released that person's identity or any possible charges. The identity of the woman who was killed has also not been released as investigators work to notify the family. Neighbors described the area as a quiet, family-oriented community, saying they were shocked to see the large police presence and response, along with the crime scene tape surrounding that home there. Investigators have not said what led up to the shooting, but obviously police are investigating, and they say that it remains active at this point. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about another story that is also making headlines, and this one has to do with Memorial Day travel. Georgia State Troopers are out in full force on the roadways today, along with the entire weekend so far. A new numbers show they've been busy so far. The Georgia Department of Public Safety says troopers have made 219 DUI arrests so far during the 78-hour holiday travel period. In addition to those arrests, law enforcement has also stopped more than 230 drivers for distracted driving. Troopers have also issued just under 300 citations for seatbelt violations statewide, and officials say the extra enforcement is part of a major holiday safety push as millions of people hit the roads for Memorial Day weekend. The Department of Public Safety is reminding drivers to buckle up, put their phones down, and give themselves extra time to reach their destinations. They say safety behind the wheel starts with the driver. State troopers have also responded to 14 separate crashes involving drivers accused of driving under the influence. And as of Sunday, the state has recorded 6 deadly crashes across Georgia during the holiday period. Officials say it's still unclear whether impairment played a role in any of those deadly crashes. As investigations continue, we'll be getting another update from the Georgia Department of Public Safety later on today. And as soon as we get that, we'll, of course, keep you updated here on Fox Local. Now let's talk about something else that's also impacting a lot of folks this weekend, and that's from the roads to the lakes and the waterway. Georgia game wardens responded to 2 separate boating incidents involving young children on Lake Hartwell during the Memorial Day holiday weekend. The first happened on Saturday afternoon just before 4:40, involving a personal watercraft with 2 people on board. Investigators say a 7-year-old girl was thrown from the watercraft, suffering an injury to her right leg. Game wardens say the watercraft was being operated by an 18-year-old man who had not completed Georgia's required boating education course, and the personal watercraft was also not registered. Alcohol was not believed to be a factor in the incident. The operator, of course, was cited in this case, and the child was taken to a hospital in Livonia with non-life-threatening injuries. Then on Sunday afternoon, around 4:55, game wardens were called to a second incident on Lake Hartwell involving a 6-year-old girl. Investigators say the boat was breached on an island near the mouth of Gumlog Cove when another juvenile pushed the child off the vessel. As she fell, her right hand became caught in the boat's door, causing a serious injury. The child was taken to a hospital for further treatment. Certainly lots going on there, but that's not a shock considering the weekend is going to be a busy one on the waterways, even despite the rain. So it's time now. Let's get a check of some of the other stories Fox 5 is working on. Our assignment manager, Tanya Mendoza, is standing by at our assignment desk with a look at those stories. Hey, Tanya.
Tyler, and several towns and cities around Georgia are celebrating Memorial Day today, and we were over at the Marietta National Cemetery. Our reporter Tara Jabor is over there. They had a ceremony starting right at noon. The National Memorial Day Association of Georgia is hosting this event at the Marietta Memorial Day ceremony to offer a heartfelt tribute to veterans who made the ultimate sacrifice. The event features patriotic melodies, the presentation of posting of colors, solemn prayers, and a gun salute, and speeches from speakers sharing insights on veterans' resilience. Let's listen in to some sound from that event.
Our organization pauses to put this ceremony on here at the National Cemetery in Marietta to reflect, remember, and pause to think about those who came before us, to have given the ultimate sacrifice, to fight for the freedoms and the ideals that this country represents. And as I was saying earlier, this day is different from July the 4th. It's different from Veterans Day. Those are days more of celebration, hot dogs, fireworks. But today we solemnly remember the people that fought for our freedoms. The cost of freedom is not free. And the cost of freedom is literally buried in the ground. And you see it here amongst our 18,000 soldiers that are represented.
All right, Tyler. So that was at the Marietta National Cemetery. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but there's 17,000 soldiers and their families buried there. Over 10,000 of those are Union Civil War soldiers. Obviously, there's no more burials there, but that cemetery has events every year, and I've actually been there when one of my boys was a Cub Scout. They would go out there and put flags, American flags, at all the graves as part of what they did. So that's what Tara's covering today. We'll bring highlights from some of the other ceremonies throughout the metro Atlanta area, including Dunwoody and Roswell, and an event here in town. Tyler?
Yeah, nice to see so many people showing up to pay tribute to our fallen service members and those who have fought for this country on a day like today. That's what the purpose of this holiday is for. So it's nice to see so many people coming out for that. Also, this Memorial Day, people are traveling. So that's another story we're following, and it has to do with what we're seeing overseas with the Ebola outbreak. What's going on at Hartsfield-Jackson?
That's right. So big news to report today. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention expanded enhanced public health entry screenings for Ebola to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. The mandatory screening checks in Atlanta went into effect on May 22nd at 11:59 p.m. This expansion allows follow screening at Washington Dulles International Airport as well, which that began on the 20th. So all of this is happening over at Hartsfield-Jackson as well. Hartsfield previously conducted this type of screening and has established operational procedures that are already in place. So that's what's going on there, Tyler. And we have actually Kevin Stewart following that story today. As you know, Kevin's been following the Ebola story and any local ties to that story here in Georgia.
I'd be super interested to see how the actual screening process works, because in some countries, I've seen that type of process. When you're arriving there, they'll maybe check your temperature, things like that, ask you a series of questions. I'm curious how it's working at Hartsfield-Jackson this go around to see how to see how it works. It'd be super interesting.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Perhaps in the future they might do some sort of like show and tell for us, or send us a video of it. But right now, I don't think that they're doing that.
Yeah. Well, so the last story I believe you're going to talk about is a story that we talked about over the weekend, and it has to do with the Chattahoochee River. There was a massive fish kill. What do we know about that?
Yeah, thousands of fish suffocated to death due to plunging oxygen levels along the Chattahoochee River. Investigators from the Chattahoochee River Keeper state that a combination of extreme weather conditions and steady infrastructure failures caused this disaster. Prior to the incident, near record low river flows were being mandated at absolute minimum requirements by the U.S. Corps of Engineers. So all of this happened. You know, we had the flooding on the 20th, and an intense storm dropped 3 inches of rain in 1 hour inside the I-285 perimeter area. Rainwater hit warm pavement, creating thermal pollution that raised stormwater temperatures and washed a heavy load of toxic pollutants and nutrients into the river. So that's what happened. We are following that closely today, and Ray Yadena will have the latest on the Chattahoochee fish kill later today.
Yeah, we'll look for that story. Certainly interesting. I've been on the Chattahoochee. Many people in our area have likely been on the Chattahoochee at some point, whether it's shooting the hooch or just going out maybe near the recreation area and enjoying the water. So it'll be nice for him to get some more answers about this as state and local leaders investigate what exactly happened. Tanya Mendoza at our assignment desk, thanks so much for the update on the stories we are working on today, and we'll check in with you tomorrow. As we continue on here on this Memorial Day Monday, we still have a lot more ahead. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Fox 5 News Live at 1 o'clock. We are so glad you're here. We want to talk about the weather right now. If we take you outside and show you a time lapse from Truist Park yesterday, it was just amazing how quickly things can change. You're looking at this time lapse. Obviously, you can see the rain had already moved through and into this area, and then it seemingly goes away super quickly. And once this actually refreshes from the top, you will get to see it, just how quickly things can change, where the skies went from gray to a complete downpour in just a matter of minutes. And all of this happened in just a half an hour. There it is. You see how quickly things changed there as the heavy rain and storms moved quickly through the area, soaking parts of metro Atlanta. And unfortunately, it's been another rainy day here in the metro. We've already had rain here at our Fox 5 studios today, and we are expecting even more into the afternoon throughout all of North Georgia. Tracking the conditions, our Fox 5 Storm Team meteorologist, Alex Forbes.
A flood watch in effect for the afternoon and evening here across really most of metro Atlanta and North Georgia, but confined really north and west of the city, right? Hall County over to Forsyth County, Fulton, Cobb, Paulding over towards Douglas, Coweta, and Heard counties all included, and then it extends back up towards the Rome area. The reason why we have a flood watch is because rainfall rates could be upwards of about 2 inches an hour here as we work our way through the afternoon hours. A lot of rich tropical moisture in our air to work with. Now, even though the flood watch is only for those specific counties, to be realistic, we all have an equal chance of flash flooding here into the evening hours tonight. Locally heavy downpours. I would particularly keep an eye on places that are susceptible to poor drainage, right? If you know of a spot where if you get a quick inch of rain, it floods, those are the types of spots that I would expect to run into problems, not necessarily looking for too much in the way of river or stream flooding. It's possible that one or two of those get into minor flood stage, but nothing major here across the metro Atlanta area. So for the remainder of the day today, looking at temperatures, really not changing all that much. We're in the upper 70s now. We'll cool back down into the mid 70s and 60s through the evening, but a decent chance of storms here through the late afternoon and into the evening hours as we track those moving up from the south, and then that gives way to just some scattered showers later on this evening. So let's talk about the details here. The storms moving in the next couple of hours, crossing I-20 about 6 p.m. These are where your locally heavy downpours are going to occur, and that would really pose the flash flooding risk. That's going to continue to lift towards the north, and by the time we get towards 11 p.m., we are just left with those scattered showers. Through the overnight, definitely hanging on to the cloud cover, and then for tomorrow, we're going to do something similar. But instead of a south to north motion, I would be looking for more of a southwest to northeast kind of motion with the showers and storms. And particularly south of I-85, that's probably where your heavier rain threat is going to be through Tuesday afternoon. On into Wednesday here, not quite as wet, waking up to some scattered showers, and then into the afternoon, yes, there will be storms around. It just doesn't look like there's going to be as many of them, and that's going to allow the temperatures to warm a bit. So here is the rainfall potential, we'll call it. And I don't want you to look at the exact city and the exact number. Instead, recognize the pattern here across northern Georgia. There will be a couple instances where over the next 2 days, people just miss out on the rain. 0.3, 0.4. Numbers like that will be possible. Most everybody should see about an inch, maybe even 2 inches of rain, and then embedded within those areas, there will be these isolated, orange swaths of higher rainfall totals. One out near Augusta, another in, say, the South Metro. And there's no rhyme or reason necessarily to where that's going to set up. Just know that there will be swaths of higher rainfall totals, much like we saw yesterday here in parts of Cobb and Cherokee counties. Now, one thing that's for certain, the humidity over the next couple of days, it is going to remain tropical here across northern Georgia. In fact, we're just going to call it straight up sticky, and that is going to yield daily shower and storm chances. Even on Thursday, where we're trending a bit drier, there's still a decent amount of activity across northern Georgia. Then we get into Friday, a decent rain chance there. Saturday, that just doesn't look great. And then Sunday, backing off the rain chance a bit, only about 20% here across the metro area. That was the European model. This is the GFS. Its counterpart, it says about the same thing as we work our way into the weekend. So the 7-day rainfall forecast, widespread 3 to 5 inches of rain when all is said and done between now and next Monday. The numbers I just showed you on that other map, that was just the next 48 hours. This is now really the next 7 days here across the metro Atlanta area. So here is your Fox 5 Storm Team 7-day forecast. 81 tomorrow. 83 on Wednesday, 86 on Thursday. That's probably the driest day of the work week ahead, but the driest of the next 7 comes on Sunday. Still hanging on to a 20% chance of rain there as high temperatures come back down into the 70s for the final weekend of May.
Like a lot of rain expected over the course of the next 7 days. We just have to get through it, and then it sounds like that Sunday is going to be good. Alex, thank you so much for the update there. And I want to take you out now to Piedmont Park, which is where Jazz Fest is going on right now. Well, the showers and stormy weather hasn't kept people away from one of Atlanta's biggest Memorial Day weekend traditions. Thousands have still filled Piedmont Park for the 49th annual Jazz Festival. Even with periods of heavy rain and weather delays, many festival goers stayed put, huddling under umbrellas, tents, and ponchos while waiting for the music to continue. The festival runs through today and features live performances from jazz artists from across the country. Organizers say the event has become a Memorial Day weekend staple in Atlanta, drawing huge crowds to Piedmont Park every single year. And despite the wet conditions, many people at the festival said the weather wasn't enough to keep them away, calling the event a tradition they look forward to every single year. And I think the food is also one reason why people might look forward to it, because that looks fantastic. And I wish I could eat something right now, because, you know, it's right in the middle of lunch since it's 1:20, approaching 1:20 on this Monday afternoon. Well, let's bring you back into our newsroom now. And he is one of the biggest names in hip hop. A 9-time Grammy Award winner, Rick Ross, is a businessman, author, and cultural icons, and he's celebrating 20 years in the music industry. Can you believe it? He's coming to Atlanta, of course, for his car and bike show, but also a tour unlike any other he's done before. Just imagine his biggest hits backed by a live orchestra at the Fox Theater. Good Day's Natalie McCann spoke with the rap game's biggest boss, Rick Ross.
I'm so excited.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for having me.
I wish you were here in studio right now. I just want to spend a little time with you.
I would have loved that. That sounds so amazing.
I know. Well, maybe when you're here in June, we'll get to see you. But okay, let's chat, because this is, first of all, congratulations on just what you've done. 2 decades in this industry. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, when you go from hustling to where you are now, I mean, just look how far you've come.
It's unbelievable. Celebrating 20 years, 20 summers for my debut album. Georgia always supported Ricky Rose. ATL most definitely, one of hip hop's biggest meccas. Always meant the most to me, but I could have never imagined 20 years later, we still here. The streets still embracing, the love is there, and it's amazing.
It really is. Is there one part, as you're looking back on how you got here, that makes you so proud, just your proudest moment, or just all of it combined?
Most definitely, it's all a combined feeling and emotion, but I just remember those dark nights. You know, you writing songs alone in the dark, and you really feel like no one sees what you see. As clear as it is to you, a lot of times you can really feel no one else has your vision, and, you know, you feel alone sometimes, and I felt like that for, you know, a long time before my first hit record ever came out.
Wow, that's very moving. I want to move now to, you know, what you're starting now with this tour. It's so much different than any other tour that you've been on. So, I mean, you're bringing in an orchestra. I need to know, though, Rick, when you were listening to your hit songs being backed by the orchestra for the first time, you know, what was that like for you?
Well, you know, the orchestra, performing with an orchestra, we've seen that before, but I think what took this somewhat totally different is something I've never done, was to have a full orchestra as well as a full choir. So now when you hear those records like Aston Martin Music, Here I Am, BMF, Every Damn Hustling, and you hearing the full orchestra and the choir as well, those sounds are layers. It's going to sound like the music is coming full 360 to you in the way I'm going to perform, the things I'm going to discuss on stage. I've never done this. So for me, it's a real celebration. And for the ones that come, I'm going to make sure it's something you never forget.
Oh, absolutely. It seems like it's a really immersive experience that you don't want to miss. And a black tie affair as well.
Without a doubt. Atlanta, Georgia, all surrounding areas, Queens, ladies, I'm inviting you out. Wear your nicest gowns. Fellas, be on your boss vibes, you know what I mean? And once again, just come to celebrate 20 years of, you know, the biggest boss, Ricky Rose. And for the ones that's been there from day one, I hope you feel the way I expect you'll feel.
Yeah, and then the very next day, Rick, you've got your car and bike show, and this has just gotten out of control, amazing in the best possible way. I mean, how excited are you for this to be back here in just a couple weeks?
I can't, you know, once again, the 12th, we have the tour. That'll be one of one. And then the 13th, the 5th annual Rick Ross Car Show. I got some of my biggest friends and surprise guests coming out to the car show. So that weekend in Georgia is going to be one for the books. I'm inviting everybody out. Get your tickets right now online, POM20.com. And most definitely, I want to see you come out and let's do it big. Let's do it big.
Let's do it. Rick, your new book, Renaissance of a Boss, is really giving fans a deeper look at, your life and the legacy and the mindset. But it's the mindset for me that really just has, made you stand apart from so many others. Just the way that you live your life and the way that you talk and inspire others. Is there, something that drives you or, something that you live by every day that really gets you moving?
It's something that I realized. I've been saying this to myself for the last week. Sometimes we have to step back and let our hearts lead us. Because whatever you love the most, whatever you enjoy the most, you're going to be the best at. You're going to go above and beyond without a request. And that's what it's time for us to do. If you really want to be amazing at what it is you are, what it is you represent, and what it is you do, let's go above and beyond any expectations anyone can have for you. And that's what I think really being a boss is all about.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And also your new album, Set in Stone. What can fans expect from this? What are you most excited for us to hear?
This new album, Set in Stone, it's so much that I got to address. The music that I make, the big boy talk, that luxurious, rich rap that I love to call it, it's back and it's going to be bigger than ever. It's going to feel more expensive. And then we talking that big talk to a lot of people who need it. We got to remind them what the South is and what we represent, and that's exactly what we're doing on this album, Set in Stone.
Oh my gosh, Rick, I just love you. I love you. You're just so amazing. You're incredible. You're so inspiring, truly, and I can't wait to finish your book and to come see you out at your tour. That would just be incredible. So thank you so much for your time.
And most definitely, thank you all for having me as well.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Have the best day. Enjoy it. We'll see you soon.
Most definitely. Thank you.
Bye, Rick.
And we will see him again soon. Let's continue on here on Fox 5 News Live at 1 o'clock. Summertime means camp season is here, and Atlanta native and Orlando Magic's own Wendell Carter Jr. is back with his free annual basketball camp. It's happening at Whitefield Academy Saturday, June 6th from 8 a.m. till 3. The camp will feature skills development, drills, and there will also be a STEM component. Organizers say there are a limited amount of spots available, so you need to register, and you can visit a platformsquared.org for information on how you can register. Sounds like a good thing to do for the kids. Another thing we're following also in the world of sports has to do with the U.S. World Cup team. The World Cup roster for the U.S. men's national team will officially be announced tomorrow, but initial leaks have given us a preview of who will be on the 26-man roster. According to The Guardian, Sounders midfielder Christian Roldan, as well as Club America winner Alejandro Zendejas made the cut. Other notable names include Gio Reyna and Joe Scally. We'll have an update right here on Fox Local tomorrow as that announcement is expected to be made officially. Even though we have the leak, it'll be officially announced tomorrow at 3 p.m. in New York City. Fox 5 is, of course, your home for World Cup action, and we'll be having extended coverage both here on Fox 5 and then also talking about all the fun that's happening since Atlanta is going to be hosting 8 different matches starting June 15th going to July 15th with that semifinal. We'll have extended coverage here on Fox Local as well. The time now is 1:27 on this Monday afternoon, this Memorial Day. We still have a lot more ahead. We're going to be checking in to see some of the top stories that you are clicking on our website, fox5atlanta.com. We'll have that right after the break. And let's get a check of some of our top stories we're following here in the Fox 5 newsroom, including this story out of Cobb County. A man was convicted of killing his girlfriend, a well-known social media and roller skating influencer. Well, we now know he will spend the rest of his life in prison. A judge sentenced 24-year-old Eugene Louis Jacquet to life without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 20 years. The sentence comes after a jury found him guilty on multiple charges, including malice murder. The case stems from the 2023 killing of 22-year-old beauty coach who a 22-year-old who had built a large following online as a roller skating and Instagram influencer. Investigators say Couch was stabbed multiple times during the attack. Her body was later found in a wooded area near her mother's vehicle, which had been set on fire. Prosecutors described the killing as brutal and asked the court for the maximum possible sentence. With the judge's decision, Louise Jacquet will now spend the rest of his life behind bars without the possibility of parole. This next story is one that certainly has made headlines because it's gone viral online. We brought this story to you last week. A wild fight outside an Atlanta high school graduation ceremony is going viral after this video right here of the chaos spread across social media. Look at that. Lots of people involved there, it looks like. The fight happened Thursday outside Georgia Tech, where Benjamin E. Mays High School was holding its graduation ceremony. The video shows people throwing punches, kicking one another, and running through large crowds gathered outside the venue. A witness who was there celebrating her nephew's graduation says the scene quickly spiraled out of control. Take a listen to what she had to say.
And it wasn't until maybe seconds later I started to see what I identified as graduates fighting, because they had on cap and gowns and they had on the school colors. So that's, how I was able to identify them as graduates. And they were just fighting. I mean, it was girls, it was boys. I mean, you had parents trying to break it up, parents holding toddlers on their hips, trying to get them out of harm's way, smaller kids, screaming for their parents because it was complete chaos.
Yeah, and the witness says what started as a celebration turned into panic as families scrambled to get their children out of the area. Atlanta Public Schools says there were no problems during the actual ceremony inside the venue and that the incident happened afterward outside the facility. You can clearly see there's actually a police officer not far, his vehicle just right there. District Police and Atlanta Police, along with Georgia Tech campus police, all responded to the scene. Atlanta Public Schools says 3 people were detained and 2 of them were taken to the Atlanta City Jail. Let's talk about a recall that is making headlines right now, and it's because it possibly has asbestos inside of it. Let me tell you about it. Some handheld squeezable toys are being recalled over possible asbestos content. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says the Orb Factory makers, so the Orb Funky Squeeze toys, they're recalling about 121,340 squeeze toys that come in 2 models. The squeeze toys are made of a soft, stretchable material and are filled with sand. The toys are being called back over possible asbestos content in the sand. One model is a large gold monkey, and the other model is an assortment of smaller monkeys in various colors, including orange, purple, and green. You're looking at different pictures there. The date code 3102491A. That's the one that you need to be worried about. They can be found on the hand of the gold monkey or on the backs of the other monkeys. Consumers should take the toys away from children and contact the Orb Factory for a refund. Certainly don't want kids playing with that. Definitely concerning. And if you need more information on that, we'll make sure it's online for you. And let's check in with our Joyce Lupiani, one of our digital content creators, to see what is trending on our website, fox5atlanta.com, and our Fox Local app. Hey, Joyce, good to see you on this Monday.
Hey, Tyler. So my first story involves Krispy Kreme, a data breach, and a class action lawsuit. So there was a big data breach back in 2024, and it involved like 160,000 Krispy Kreme employees. And it sounds like the hackers were able to get quite a bit of personal info, and maybe they were even able to use some of it. So now, because of a class action lawsuit, employees who were impacted could get like a pretty big settlement. And we're talking like $75 up to $3,500 if they have documentation that they were impacted by this. So this has been a super popular story on our website. We've had like 60,000 people look at this story, and they are probably looking for information about how to file if they are an employee, or maybe they're just curious because who doesn't love Krispy Kreme donuts? But we have all that information on our website for like the employees or who may have been impacted if they need to file a claim for this.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks are probably clicking on it thinking, oh, I can get some money. I've been to Krispy Kreme. And so they wanted to go see how they can get some free donuts, I'm sure, with the money that they could get.
Right, but it is just for current or former employees, whoever was working there back in 2024 when this data breach took place. But yeah, that's probably why so many people are clicking on the story, because Krispy Kreme, and yeah, maybe they want some money or free donuts.
Yeah. Let's talk about Kyle Busch now. Obviously, that story is trending online, his untimely death last week. I understand you actually have some connection with him specifically.
I do. So before I moved to Atlanta, I lived almost 30 years in Las Vegas, and I worked for the newspaper there for about 15, 16 years. And then I started working for a TV station there. So anyway, over the years, I saw, Kurt and Kyle Busch. Kurt is Kyle's older brother, pretty often. I even talked to both of them a couple of times, and I also helped arrange some other interviews. And, Kyle, he started racing when he was like 6 years old. This was back in he was 41 when he died. So, he wasn't that old at all. So he started racing in a go-kart in this neighborhood. And by the time he was 13 years old, when he was in high school, he was already like racing out at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And he had won like 65 races, I think, before he became like a NASCAR driver. And this was all when he was like a teenager. A couple of things that people may not know about Kyle. When he was 18, he was actually barred from a NASCAR truck race in California. And there was it caused a lot of uproar. A lot of people were upset about it, that he couldn't race. And it basically led to NASCAR changing the minimum age of, when drivers could participate in the truck race, and they changed it to 18. And that was all because of what happened with Kyle. Another thing is Kyle kind of had a reputation for being like rowdy. I think that was kind of his nickname. He was kind of like the villain of NASCAR, but he was actually a pretty nice guy. He was known for being like completely devoted to his wife. In fact, they had struggled for several years to have a child, and they were very vocal about it. And they did finally have a little boy. I think he's about 11 now. But they started a foundation to help women who were receiving IVF. And I think the foundation, which has donated millions of dollars, recently celebrated or has celebrated about 100-something births that they helped through the foundation. So, that was pretty cool. But yeah, it was really, really shocking to hear what happened. My Facebook, Instagram feeds have been flooded all weekend, from people in Vegas, people I know who have been posting about this. And of course, it's been a very popular story on our website just because it's so, what happened. He got pneumonia. He then became septic. I mean, I think it's pretty rare. I didn't actually check, but, it's really certainly unusual. And I think it just really shocked a lot of people that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly scary that something like that can turn so quickly. People know the name Kyle Busch, whether you're a NASCAR fan or not. You know that name. I've heard that name for years, and so certainly sad for his untimely passing. Again, racing one day and then just a few days later learning of his passing, the family telling us. So we'll be actually talking more about that in just a little bit. But you have one more story you're talking about, and this has to do with Lake Hartwell and a wild police chase that is probably one of my favorite stories of the day because super interesting.
Yes, I wish we had video. We don't have video. We do have like several photos. But what happened is a car had been reported stolen up near Lake Hartwell in that area. And a Georgia State Patrol trooper spotted it and tried to stop it. And of course, the driver did not want to pull over. The driver just took off. And there was this crazy chase that, they were going over 100 miles per hour, I guess, at a couple of times. Well, eventually the driver crashed into the guardrail, but that didn't really stop him because he jumped out of the car and took off running and then jumped into Lake Hartwell. And he was trying to swim to a cove or something. And then a Livonia police officer who was helping out, he took a civilian's boat and started chasing him with the boat and caught up with him eventually and pulled him out. So, now he's facing a whole bunch of charges. Fortunately, he wasn't injured. I don't think anyone was injured. Looks like the car got tore up pretty good. But yeah, it's just a crazy story. And maybe we'll get that video eventually because people have definitely been clicking on that story.
Yeah, certainly. When I saw the headline today, I watched it, or saw the pictures and read the story, and I certainly thought it was interesting. And then the fact that you could see him being pulled out of the water. Certainly a story that we will be remembering on this Memorial Day weekend, especially considering a lot of people were out on the water. I'm sure people actually saw it happening. So certainly an interesting story. Joyce Lipiani, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon with the stories that are trending on our website, fox5atlanta.com, and our Fox Local app. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Tyler.
And as we continue on here on this Monday afternoon, we're going to continue talking about Kyle Busch, the two-time NASCAR champion. Tributes were held at multiple speedways across the country after Busch's family announced that what began as a severe pneumonia rapidly progressed into sepsis. Good Day's Elise Edie is joined by Dr. Neil Winnower to explain how this can happen. Let's take a look.
Racing world paused to honor the life of two-time NASCAR champion Kyle Busch. Tributes were held at multiple speedways across the country after Busch's family announced that what began as severe pneumonia rapidly progressed into sepsis. So joining us now to help explain how this can happen and what the situation was here is Emory Dr. Neil Winnower, and it's good to have you in today.
It's good to be here. Good morning, Elise.
So this was a shocker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My condolences go out to the family.
Absolutely.
It's terrible.
And just 41 years old, so a young guy at that. Let's start by talking about what sepsis is.
It's an overwhelming inflammatory response that the body creates in response to an infection. A colleague described it this way. Imagine there's a kitchen fire, but in response, the sprinkler system in the whole house, not just the kitchen, goes off. So it's an inflammatory cascade that overwhelms the body from an infection in one organ system.
So what are the typical signs and symptoms that we see with that?
Fever is a big one. Muscle aches, sweats, can be severe pain as well, shortness of breath, lightheaded or dizziness from low blood pressure, and confusion. And it looks like Mr. Busch had a variety of those types of symptoms.
So we know, with him, pneumonia was the cause of sepsis, but what are the other causes that we've seen?
Yeah, pneumonia is probably the most common cause, but an infected kidney stone or kidney infection is a very common one. An infection in the skin, something called cellulitis or an abscess, infection in the gallbladder or biliary tract as well, infection in the brain or meningitis, and then blood poisoning or what we call bacteremia, which is an infection in the bloodstream as well, because typically what happens is you get an infection in an organ system and that can spill over into the blood and that can cause a severe life-threatening infection.
Like, what was so shocking about all of this is that he was fine until he wasn't, right?
Yes.
It seemed so abrupt. So why?
Yeah, no, that's the whole thing. That's why we're talking about it. Most commonly, you'll see overwhelming sepsis in the very young, the very old. Things we've talked about many times here on the program. Those with weakened immune system who have cancer or have gotten chemotherapy or may have HIV or AIDS. In this scenario, he was an otherwise healthy 41-year-old man. But in some people who are athletic or younger who can tolerate it, it's okay until it's not. And then when it can be overwhelming, it can be severe, and it could be life-threatening in just a matter of hours. But yes, this is rare in terms of seeing this usually in healthy people. Usually there's enough time to get to the hospital and be seen. And I don't want to scare people, because most people who have an infection, it doesn't turn into sepsis or this severe form of sepsis called septic shock, where you're not getting blood flow to your organ systems and you're getting tissue damage. That's what he had, the severest form of sepsis called septic shock.
Goodness gracious. So what's the treatment look like?
The treatment is initial antibiotics, localizing where the infection is from. Some people, not even just antibiotics, but something we call source control. Like if you have an abscess in the skin, you drain the abscess, you remove it. If you have a foot infection that's life-threatening, for example, gangrene, you have to amputate a toe or even a foot or a leg, whatever you have to do to remove that source. In his case, he might have had a pneumonia, but he did have pneumonia, but in some cases, the pneumonia can turn to an abscess in the chest wall. And in those cases, you put a tube into the chest to drain the infection out of the chest as well, and then prompt antibiotics, IV fluid, aggressive IV fluid, because what you're trying to do is keep the blood flow up, to keep the blood pressure up, so that your organ systems get adequate blood flow. And then in severe cases, when someone needs to go to ICU, it's supportive care. You give them oxygen, maybe even ventilatory support if they need a ventilator, and sometimes medications to support the blood pressure as well, until the body's system regulates itself. So in review, prompt recognition, treatment with antibiotics, source control, IV fluids, and then supportive care.
So when someone gets to the point of where Kyle was, when you talk, did you say it's septic shock?
Yes.
Is there coming back from that, or
Yeah.
is when you hit that point, that's
a great question. The mortality is about 50% when you start getting shock, and you need what's called vasopressors, medicines to support your blood pressure. But the problem is that you're not getting adequate blood flow to all your organ systems. So your brain, your heart, your kidneys, and when the kidneys start to fail, then you're talking about emergency dialysis, and it just becomes insurmountable in some people. You're on a ventilator, everything is failing. But in some people, especially if you can get to it early enough, they might have shock, they might have low blood pressure, but early support can turn it around. In his case, it seems like it was so overwhelming and so fast that I don't even know how much support he was able to get once he got to the hospital, because by the time he got to the hospital, his condition already was life-threatening.
wow, just shocking all the way around. Yeah.
A big shock.
Any final thoughts for us on this?
I'm just going to tell people to really recognize the symptoms early. If you have fever, chills, the big ones are shortness of breath and confusion and lethargy. If you feel you can't get up off the couch, if you're really short of breath, or if someone says, hey, you just seem different and you're not thinking clearly, that's potentially a medical emergency. So prompt recognition of the symptoms, and then the physicians in the hospital can recognize it, and early treatment really is the key. So that's why prompt recognition is important.
Yeah, such an important message, especially in light of all of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We appreciate you coming in, Dr. Winnower.
It's my pleasure.
You.
And that was Dr. Neil Winnower and Elise Edey this morning on Good Day Atlanta. Fox 5 News Live at 1 will take you to a Memorial Day remembrance ceremony happening in Gwinnett County. We'll have more after this. And welcome back to Fox 5 News Live at 1 o'clock. It is Memorial Day this Monday, and we want to talk about some of the events that are happening here in our community and some of the remembrance events as well. Right now, I can tell you that there are a number of these types of events happening across Metro Atlanta and North Georgia to honor the men and women who gave their lives in service to our country. From ceremonies and parades to special tributes and family events, we put together a full list of what's happening across this area on our website, fox5atlanta.com. And let's talk about something that's a little bit further away from us, but also a remembrance ceremony. This one happening in Washington State. Some volunteers and organizations honoring the fallen in Kent, Washington. If not me, then who? That's the motto of the Travis Manion Foundation. The group is hosting the Honor Project at Tahoma National Cemetery in Kent. The project recognizes the sacrifices of fallen military heroes by connecting their legacy with loved ones that may not be able to visit their graves in person. Volunteers place handcrafted mementos on the fallen heroes' resting place and take a moment to reflect on their sacrifice. Take a listen.
Take a picture and upload it to a website, and the loved one who nominated them can then go to the website and see that their loved one was honored and see that there is a token on their gravesite and know that somebody thought about their service member, thought about their loved one that day.
This project is one of more than 75 events happening nationwide that brings together more than 3,000 volunteers to honor 10,000 plus fallen heroes. And let's bring it back into our newsroom here at Fox 5. On this Memorial Day, we have teams of reporters scattered throughout our area taking a look at the different Memorial Day events happening. And one specific one is happening in Gwinnett County, where they're honoring fallen heroes this Memorial Day, including 2 local police officers who died in the line of duty. Their names will be added to the Gwinnett Fallen Heroes Memorial during today's ceremony in Lawrenceville. And our Chris Rosenthal has a look at the ceremony. He joins us live. Chris?
Yeah, hey Tyler. So if you've been to the Gwinnett County Justice Center, you may have noticed the Fallen Heroes Memorial. It's been here for about 20 years or so. About 700 names on it. It is for soldiers and for first responders, police officers, firefighters who've lost their lives in the line of duty. And 2 names are being added to that: Pradeep Tamang and Officer David Jones. Pradeep Tamang lost his life earlier this year in a fraud call at a local hotel. David Rose lost his life. He's a DeKalb County police officer who lost his life last year at the CDC shooting. And they're actually having this ceremony now. They will be soon inducting them into this memorial. Their names will be carved into the memorial. It'd be just a beautiful, touching sight for everybody to see. We're actually doing this inside because of the weather. And we're actually, Assistant Chief from Gwinnett County Police Department is actually speaking now about some of this. I wonder if we can take a listen to that. Let's see if we can take a live listen.
Senior Pradeep Tamang, 2741, and Master Police Officer David M. Reed Jr., badge 1802. We're investigating a fraud call in unincorporated Stone Mountain here in Gwinnett County. Suddenly and without warning, the wanted suspect they encountered opened fire, striking both Officer Tamang and Officer Reed. In the blink of an eye, Officer Tamang's life was taken, and Officer Reed received critical injuries as a result of this senseless act of gun violence. The suspect was arrested, charged, and now awaits trial. In the days, weeks, and short months that have followed, our community has come together to honor Officer Tamang. Our department has mourned, we have prayed, we have supported the families of these heroes, and we have embraced one another. I, along with so many others, including Police Officer Senior Melissa Sheridan, who's with us today, have had the privilege of supporting the family of Officer Tamang, his father Prem, his mother Sancha.
Family, Officer Tamang's family here, and as well as family of Officer David Rose here. They'll be inducting them into that memorial, revealing their names carved into that memorial, along with about 700 other names of fallen Gwinnett soldiers and first responders as well.
Chris, I know that ceremony is still going on right now. You'll have a full wrap-up coming up on Fox 5 News Live at 2 and 3 o'clock. I do appreciate that look inside that ceremony, and glad that they're able to do this for those two officers' family. Chris, I really appreciate it. We'll see you a little bit later. And that is going to do it for us for Fox 5 News Live at 1 o'clock. Don't worry, though, the news continues at 2 and 3 o'clock. Jasmine Cornell is working on that for you, and she'll join you right after this break.
Welcome to Fox 5 News Live at 2 p.m. I'm Jasmine Cornell. Thanks for joining us this streaming hour. We're streaming here on Fox Local and some of your favorite social media sites like TikTok and YouTube. Thanks for joining us this Memorial Day. We have plenty of stories to get to, but first, let's talk weather. There's been so much happening weather-wise, from rain to flooding. So let's bring in our meteorologist, Alex Forbes. He has a look at your weather forecast and what you can expect today for the rest of the day and this week.
A flood watch in effect for the afternoon and evening here across really most of metro Atlanta and North Georgia, but confined really north and west of the city, right? Hall County over to Forsyth County, Fulton, Cobb, Paulding over towards Douglas, Coweta, and Heard counties all included, and then it extends back up towards the Rome area. The reason why we have a flood watch is because rainfall rates could be upwards of about 2 inches an hour here as we work our way through the afternoon hours. A lot of rich tropical moisture in our air to work with. Now, even though the flood watch is only for those specific counties, to be realistic, we all have an equal chance of flash flooding here into the evening hours tonight. Locally heavy downpours. I would particularly keep an eye on places that are susceptible to poor drainage, right? If you know of a spot where if you get a quick inch of rain, it floods, those are the types of spots that I would expect to run into problems, not necessarily looking for too much in the way of river or stream flooding. It's possible that one or two of those get into minor flood stage, but nothing major here across the metro Atlanta area. So for the remainder of the day today, looking at temperatures, really not changing all that much. We're in the upper 70s now. We'll cool back down into the mid 70s and 60s through the evening, but a decent chance of storms here through the late afternoon and into the evening hours as we track those moving up from the south, and then that gives way to just some scattered showers later on this evening. So let's talk about the details here. The storms moving in the next couple of hours, crossing I-20 about 6 p.m. These are where your locally heavy downpours are going to occur, and that would really pose the flash flooding risk. That's going to continue to lift towards the north, and by the time we get towards 11 p.m., we are just left with those scattered showers. Through the overnight, definitely hanging on to the cloud cover, and then for tomorrow, we're going to do something similar, but instead of a south to north motion, I would be looking for more of a southwest to northeast kind of motion with the showers and storms, and particularly south of I-85, that's probably where your heavier rain threat is going to be through Tuesday afternoon. On into Wednesday here, not quite as wet, waking up to some scattered showers, and then into the afternoon, yes, there will be storms around. It just doesn't look like there's going to be as many of them, and that's going to allow the temperatures to warm a bit. So here is the rainfall potential, we'll call it. And I don't want you to look at the exact city and the exact number. Instead, recognize the pattern here across northern Georgia. There will be a couple instances where over the next 2 days, people just miss out on the rain. 0.3, 0.4. Numbers like that will be possible. Most everybody should see about an inch, maybe even 2 inches of rain, and then embedded within those areas, there will be these isolated, orange swaths of higher rainfall totals. One out near Augusta, another in, say, the South Metro. And there's no rhyme or reason necessarily to where that's going to set up. Just know that there will be swaths of higher rainfall totals, much like we saw yesterday here in parts of Cobb and Cherokee counties. Now, one thing that's for certain, the humidity over the next couple of days, it is going to remain tropical here across northern Georgia. In fact, we're just going to call it straight up sticky, and that is going to yield daily shower and storm chances. Even on Thursday, where we're trending a bit drier, there's still a decent amount of activity across northern Georgia. Then we get into Friday, a decent rain chance there. Saturday, that just doesn't look great. And then Sunday, backing off the rain chance a bit, only about 20% here across the metro area. That was the European model. This is the GFS. Its counterpart, it says about the same thing as we work our way into the weekend. So the 7-day rainfall forecast, widespread 3 to 5 inches of rain when all is said and done between now and next Monday. The numbers I just showed you on that other map, that was just the next 48 hours. This is now really the next 7 days here across the metro Atlanta area. So here is your Fox 5 Storm Team 7-day forecast. 81 tomorrow. 83 on Wednesday, 86 on Thursday. That's probably the driest day of the work week ahead, but the driest of the next 7 comes on Sunday. Still hanging on to a 20% chance of rain there as high temperatures come back down into the 70s for the final weekend of May.
All right, Alex, thanks so much for giving us an update there on the forecast. It's Memorial Day, and over the weekend, I know many people wanted to head out to the lake, but one lake had some serious issues, and this story is trending on our website. An unprecedented fish kill has devastated local wildlife after thousands of fish suffocated to death along a massive stretch of the Chattahoochee River. So the Chattahoochee River keeper, who you just heard a little bit from, and we'll play that for you again, reported that thousands of fish died due to plunging oxygen levels impacting at least 20 miles of water. Now, this massive fish kill, which most commonly happens when oxygen levels plummet in bodies of water, was first reported on Friday, starting at Peachtree Creek in northwest Atlanta. Now, Executive Director Jason Alseth stated that low water levels polluted stormwater runoff, and the apparent overflow of an underground drainage tunnel caused a low oxygen slug to empty into the waterway. That is a mouthful there, so much happening to cause this, but people living near the affected waterways expressed shock over this, over the sudden destruction of the fish, but noted that the city has spent decades trying to improve local infrastructure so this doesn't happen. We spoke with Alseth and a person who lives near the area. Let's take a quick listen.
Been on the river my entire life. I've never seen a fish kill this massive. We're talking thousands of dead fish for mile after mile after mile. A sewer and stormwater infrastructure overflowed combined sewage and stormwater into the Chattahoochee River and caused a huge dissolved oxygen crash, which suffocated all of the fish.
It's crazy, but to be fair, I'm going to give the city of Atlanta some credit. They have been working for the last 30 years to try to make it better. They just need to work a little harder. We love walking around Atlanta, and part of our economic viability is nature and trees, and it's people want to walk around in nature like we're doing today and not smell and see dead fish. So World Cup's coming, no dead fish. That's bad.
And again, you just heard from Executive Director Jason Alseth with Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, and you heard from a local person there who frequents that body of water. Alseth raised some questions about whether the drainage tunnel was dry beforehand or if existing water decreased its overall capacity. The Riverkeeper announced plans to meet directly with city leaders on Thursday of this week to address the fish kill and to prevent it from happening again. And our Ray Urena is following this story as well. We'll hear from him in the next hour about what's happening and hopefully what the city is doing to stop this from happening again. Moving forward now, the Georgia Department of Public Safety releasing its first round of traffic safety data for the ongoing 78-hour Memorial Day holiday travel period, revealing that enforcement numbers surged overnight. So take a listen to the amount of DUI arrests here. State troopers out in full force enforcing traffic laws statewide to keep holiday travelers safe. However, according to the latest data released by the agency yesterday, law enforcement has logged at least 219 DUI arrests. Again, this is across Georgia. And in addition to impaired driving arrests, troopers pulled over more than 230 drivers for distracted driving. So officials also issued just under 300 citations for seatbelt violations across the state. Authorities are urging all drivers to buckle up, put their phones down, and give themselves extra time to travel, reminding them that public safety starts with the driver. And as of yesterday, DPS has counted 6 fatal crashes across the state of Georgia. Officials note it remains unclear at this time if any of those specific fatal incidents involved impaired drivers. However, troopers have already responded to 14 separate traffic crashes involving individuals who were driving under the influence. Let's take a look at some different VO here. So we spoke to a father whose son was killed by a drunk driver back in 1987, and there's that 22-year-old who was killed. So for Bob Nolman, the father, the loss is still fresh. His 22-year-old son, Danny, was hit and killed by an impaired driver, a wrong-way driver in Pennsylvania, and now he's on a mission to spread awareness of this. Let's take a listen.
So a preventable accident put my life and my whole family's life in such turmoil. And since then, I've kind of been dedicated to being the voice that Danny doesn't have anymore and speaking for MAD and trying to save lives. Here's a holiday where we're grieving for those military who never came back and the lives lost. And now look at all, it's not the same, but it's similar because look at the lives lost for the stupidity of somebody getting behind the wheel, not thinking about it, not thinking about how do I get home after I drink too much or take some substance.
And again, you just heard from Bob Nallman there, whose son died in an accident in a crash where the driver was impaired and driving the wrong way. Getting back to the numbers here, so the Memorial Day travel period does end tonight. And again, the Department of Public Safety says it has increased patrols statewide to keep the roads safe. And make sure you're just one of those drivers out there watching out for your other fellow drivers, keeping everybody safe on the roads. Let's keep these numbers down, especially these driving under the influence numbers down. Let's talk about boating from roads to the lakes. The first round of numbers for the Memorial Day holiday weekend are from the Georgia game wardens. So officials report at least one person was hurt in a boating incident in the Gainesville area. There was also a BUI, or boating under the influence, incident there, and 2 in Albany. So again, this is another situation where people are operating vehicles, boats in this case, and driving under the influence, which isn't good. So separately on Lake Hartwell, a 7-year-old child was taken to the hospital yesterday afternoon after sustaining a leg injury. The child was injured after being thrown from a personal watercraft there. And the 18-year-old operator of that watercraft was cited by authorities for an unregistered vessel and a lack of boating education. Game wardens confirmed that alcohol was not a factor in that specific incident on Lake Hartwell. But again, it's so important to make sure that when you do head out on the lake this summer, that you are not boating under the influence. Officials are stressing that. And staying on Lake Hartwell, this crazy chase here, we're going to show you some video. High-speed chase involving a stolen vehicle on Sunday ended with a suspect leaping into the lake in an attempt to escape law enforcement. So according to Georgia State Patrol, a white 2017 Subaru is involved here in this situation. It was reported stolen early yesterday from the Ridge Road area in Hart County. A trooper later found the vehicle on Highway 17 or Girard Road near Pleasant Hill Road in Franklin County. The trooper tried to do a traffic stop here, but the driver immediately took off down Girard Road and onto Georgia Highway 328 with speeds, officials say, exceeding 100 miles per hour. So really fast here. The chase reportedly came to an end when the driver lost control of the car while attempting to negotiate a bridge curve near mile marker 3 on Georgia Highway 328. So that car traveled onto the shoulder, crashed into a guardrail, and then eventually came to a stop. Now, authorities say that after crashing, this driver got out of the vehicle and ran away. They ran and jumped right into Lake Hartwell and then swam toward the middle of a nearby cove to evade law enforcement. So this person here did a lot to get away from police. Responding agencies quickly established a perimeter around the area. In a Hart County Sheriff's Office, Deputy and a Livonia police officer utilized a nearby citizen's boat to reach the suspect in the water and safely take him into custody. So think about being in that person's shoes, the person who had to give their boat to law enforcement. I'm pretty sure they feel like a hero here, but they had to give their boat to law enforcement so that law enforcement could catch the suspect who had been running away from them. So the suspect in this case identified as 29-year-old Sean Austin Mays. He's from Livonia, and he was taken to St. Mary's Hospital, St. Mary's Sacred Heart Hospital, with minor injuries. And he's currently in custody now of the Hart County Sheriff's Office, facing multiple charges, including felony theft by taking and felony entering an auto, attempting to elude police, and several other counts here. We'll continue to follow the story, but what a crazy story here, this high-speed chase ending after the suspect got into that lake. They jumped into that lake. Well, time now is 2:16. We know that many ceremonies are underway to honor our fallen heroes here. It's Memorial Day, and it's such an important day as we all gather with our family and friends to honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. So we know that our president, President Trump, participated in a wreath-laying ceremony, and he delivered remarks at the Arlington National Cemetery honoring America's fallen heroes. Let's take a listen.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. What a beautiful day, as it turns out. It's just perfect. We'd rather have this than the heat. It's just beautiful. It's always beautiful being here. My 5th time, and it never changes. Vice President Vance, Secretary Hegseth, Chairman Kaine, members of the Cabinet, members of the United States Armed Forces, veterans, and fellow citizens. Today, here at Arlington, a very special place that held burial grounds, battlefields across the country. And around the world, we unite in solemn observance. With reverent hearts, we honor those who fell so that our republic might stand, those who died so that our nation could live, those who gave up their sacred light on earth so that the sublime light of American freedom would shine forever and ever. This Memorial Day, we salute them, we exalt them, and we thank them for all that we have and for all that they gave. They gave everything. God bless our fallen heroes. We're joined today by some of those they left behind, our incredible Gold Star families, incredible people. To every person here and across America who holds tight to the memory of a warrior taken from them, we will never, ever forget the ones you loved. Gold Star family members, please stand. Receive our thanks, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. My honor. Less than 6 weeks from now, our nation will reach a historic milestone, 250 years of majestic American independence, something. But it's only right that first we remember the immense sacrifice that has been brought to us and this momentous anniversary year. That's what it is. It's a momentous year. Before we hail the founding, we honor the fallen. Before we celebrate the triumph, we pay the tribute. Before we crown the victory, we count the cost. Today, we are reminded that there could be no 4th of July without America's armed forces, and there could be no Independence Day without Memorial Day. We owe our liberty, our self-government, the glories of our history, and our very nation itself to the generations who paid for it with everything they had, the ultimate sacrifice. The first Americans to give their lives in battle fell on April 1775, when 8 patriots were cut down by redcoats. Those guns, they were shot on Lexington Green. They had answered the call to muster against a force 5 times their strength. They said at the time, the greatest in the world, in defense of their cherished rights and their cherished liberty. As the British approached Massachusetts, militiamen summoned destiny itself, saying, if they mean to have a war, let it begin right here. Talib Harrington was 23 years old when he accompanied his father to the Green that day. torn apart from each other in the chaos of combat. That American son died trying to fight his way back to his father. He wanted to get back to Dad. Caleb's cousin Jonathan was struck down at age 31, shot within the sight of his home, and his young wife and child who awaited his return. Jonathan crawled, bleeding, back to them to die on his own doorstep for a final, terrible but beautiful farewell. His widow and orphan were perhaps the very first Gold Star family in a long, unbroken chain that reaches up through the ages to us right here today. When our founding fathers put the ideas of the Declaration of Independence to paper in Philadelphia, they signed and sealed an oath that had already been written in blood by patriots at Lexington, Concord, and Bunker Hill. Their sacrifice birthed the most incredible and exceptional nation in all of history. And our nation is doing better today than it's ever done before. Right? That's right. The cause of independence exploded from that part of the American soul that will not be tamed, that will never be conquered, that will rather face death than to live as slaves to the arbitrary will of another. This is the unyielding spirit that has always set Americans apart and driven generations of American warriors into battle, their chests beating with the cry that says, "We will govern ourselves. We will control our destiny. We will bow to no one but the righteous God who made us and who gave us our rights and blessed this land of free and the bravest of the brave." 10 days into the legendary Battle of the Bulge in World War II, Lieutenant Colonel Keith Ware led 11 men in a tank against entrenched German positions, the toughest positions anywhere in the world.
Again, and you just heard from the president there speaking at the wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, honoring our fallen heroes here in America. Time is 2:24. When we return, we'll continue coverage of our Memorial Day ceremonies and take a look at one honoring our heroes here in the city of Atlanta. Welcome back to our news conversation here at Fox 5 News Live. I'm Jasmine Cornell. We're continuing coverage of the ceremonies being held across the state of Georgia and also the U.S. to honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice to honor our veterans. So veterans gathered in Piedmont Park today to honor fallen service members at Atlanta's newly unveiled Vietnam War Memorial, despite the rainy weather across the city of Atlanta. Fox 5's Rob DiRienzo joins us live with a look. And Rob, the rain didn't stop the people from coming out to honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice.
That's exactly right. Good afternoon to you, Jasmine. The rain has been off and on, but thankfully it held during the ceremony. As one of the veterans told me, it doesn't rain in the military, it rains on the military. So despite the official ceremony here being canceled, these Sons of Atlanta veterans came out anyway. I want to show you some video from this event a little while ago, right around 11 a.m. they came out. This is, again, the Sons of Atlanta Vietnam War Memorial here in Piedmont Park that, as you mentioned, just opened a couple of weeks ago, or really back in March. Now, freedom is not free is etched onto the floor of the new memorial. About 240 names of fallen soldiers who grew up in Atlanta and surrounding Fulton County areas are honored in this memorial, and it is a way to remember the community members who lost their lives during this war. Now, although the park asked the organization to reschedule the official Memorial Day ceremony, the group of vets had an informal gathering here, and people I spoke to said they're very appreciative that they did so anyway.
Well, I'm from a military family. I'm from Warner Robins, so my grandfather fought in the Korean War, so it means a lot to me that the city is presenting itself this way.
I was actually wounded in combat, and Jimmy and Ray were also wounded in combat. All of us are members of Vietnam Veterans of America, and we were determined to bring them home so that the people from our city could honor them and get to know the price they paid for the freedoms that we enjoy in this country.
Such a touching tribute out here. Now, this memorial was paid for through the city's Park Improvement Fund and through fundraising. And back out here, part of that fundraising are those commemorative bricks you see. You can still buy one and have one to live here permanently. The Sons of Atlanta crew here says that you could still buy one. You can just go onto their website, Jasmine. Their website is sonsofatlanta.org, and then you can have a little piece of the Memorial Day, or I should say of the Vietnam War Memorial forever. Back to you.
Rob, thanks so much for joining us and giving us that update there that it was canceled. Have they set a new date for when they will honor the soldiers?
We're still waiting to hear that, but that is something that these organizers really were, that is important to them, because they say that local students, high school students and elementary and middle school students were all set to participate in this event. So we're waiting to hear when it exactly is going to be rescheduled. But again, Jasmine, they said it was so important for them to still come out here on Memorial Day anyway, just to show everybody out here that it is so much more than just barbecues and hanging out in the park. It's really about the sacrifice that these men and women gave.
Absolutely, Rob. Thanks so much for joining us to talk about this. Guys, happening right now, the Korean War Veterans Memorial Foundation is hosting a ceremony and a wreath-laying event at the Korean War Veterans Memorial this Memorial Day. This is in our nation's capital. Let's take a live look at this really quickly to see what is happening.
The time I served in the military, when you sent a soldier somewhere, or sailor, airman, marine, because we were a joint command, most of them had never been to places like that before. And I would guarantee you, knowing what the country was like as a rural country in the 50s, generally rural, that when you told a young service member they were going to Korea, they probably had never heard of it, except there was a war going on. So in that context, we need to think about it in that context, not in the context of all the travail that goes on around the political halls of wherever they are. So as a reminder, and I think it's good for us to think about it, as you look around your house today and you go home, think about what the Republic of Korea has become. I would be willing to bet that there is one technological product in your house that was made in the Republic of Korea. Samsung, LG, or your car that you drove here, Hyundai, Genesis, a Kia, you name it. They become a giant. For what reason? What was the formula? The formula was these men here and the men of other nations who served in the Republic in Korea. So as you leave today, again, I ask you to take a look at the wall, look at the names, think about your sons and daughters, uncles and aunts, fathers and mothers. Remember their youth lost. Remember the families, because their lives changed forever the day they were notified that their son was died. And we must give credit to them. So I thank you for being here. God bless our deceased members, those who fought in the Korean War and died. God bless our veterans today. And God bless the United States of America. Kachi Kapshida. Sir, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen.
Again, just bringing you live to a ceremony happening out in our nation's capital. This honoring Korean War veterans. They hosted this ceremony and it's still going on. If we can bring this live to you again during the stream, we will. But let's move forward. It's also graduation season. And so Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth, he addressed the graduating class at the U.S. Military Academy in West Point, New York over the weekend. Hegseth told the graduating cadets that they are now prepared for war, and he also spoke on the Army's unity. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We're sending you to lead. We're sending you to forge warriors. And we're sending you, perhaps, to war. And you are ready. The world today is at a crossroads, just as it has been for the past 250 years of our great republic. You are stepping into the arena at a time when the stakes could not be higher. Let me be perfectly clear. You are not an army of one. And you are certainly not an army of woke. You are an American army, an army of warriors. 4 years ago, you raised your right hand and said, "Send me." The single dumbest phrase in military history was peddled in our army only a few short years ago. You've all heard it, maybe in your first 2 years at West Point. Our diversity is our strength.
And again, that was Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth there speaking to the Army West Point graduating class. About 1,000 cadets from the class of 2026 graduated, which is so awesome here, and were commissioned as second lieutenant in the United States Army. Congratulations to this graduating class. And speaking of college grads, reports say that new graduates are facing not only a historically difficult job market, but are also up against artificial intelligence and its expansion. So a recent Monster poll says only 36% of grads say college has prepared them to use AI in the workplace, and nearly 9 out of 10 respondents are a bit worried that AI may come for their job. So the Monster poll shows 89% of them are worried AI could replace entry-level jobs. Specifically, that's a 25% jump since last year. Experts say sharpening your interview skills and learning how to leverage AI can make you stand out in the rocky job market. Let's take a listen.
You've got to become indispensable. And being human means that you know how to hold a conversation. You can be personable, be authentic, tell stories, and do things that AI can't do. You can go on LinkedIn and find the name of the person that you're going to meet. And having some personal connection is always a really good thing. Most people don't think to do that.
And you just heard from Dr. Forbes Riley there, an author of a book called Pitch Secrets A to Z. Again, she's just giving tips. There's some good tips for college grads on how to navigate this. Dr. Forbes Riley says in order to make an impression during your job interview, you should do some research on who you're speaking with. Another important tip Riley has is keeping your interviewer engaged during the conversation. And as artificial intelligence is rapidly developing, she says the best thing new grads can do is to, quote, embrace the change. Again, learning how to navigate this and use this to your advantage is so important in this day and age. Time right now is at 2:36. When we return, we'll talk about some of our local headlines. One dealing with the airport, Ebola screening, and a new parking deck coming soon. Welcome back to Fox 5 News Live. Thanks for joining our news conversation this Memorial Day. Let's get into some of our local headlines here. Speaking of the airport, so parking at Hartsfield-Jackson is about to get a lot better here. So the airport's new south red deck is set to open on June 1st. So literally not too far away, adding more than 7,000 parking spaces for travelers. Airport officials say the new deck will feature ticketless entry and exit, more than 100 electric vehicle charging stations, premium parking options, and direct access to the terminal. This expansion comes as Atlanta's airport continues to handle record passenger traffic. Millions of travelers, that is, expected to pass through this summer and ahead of the FIFA World Cup. Officials say the goal is to make the experience faster and more convenient for you all, especially during peak travel times and holiday rushes. Again, the South Red Deck opens to the public on June 1st. And speaking of the world's busiest airport, the CDC expanding health and safety measures by launching mandatory Ebola screening for inbound international passengers at Hartsfield-Jackson who visited impacted countries. So the emergency routing restrictions apply to all arriving U.S. citizens and permanent residents who were in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda, or South Sudan within 21 days of their arrival. This expansion follows similar emergency screening protocols that began at Washington Dulles International Airport on Wednesday night of last week for arriving flights. And according to the CDC, the emergency measures will expand further tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. to include George Bush Airport in Houston. So again, the CDC says Hartsfield-Jackson previously conducted enhanced public health entry screening and has established operational procedures in place. This enhanced public health entry screening is one component of the CDC's layered public health approach, they say. So health agencies have not announced an expected end date here for these mandatory airport screenings, but of course, we'll keep you updated on what you need to know. Moving out to Grayson, the story that we've been following here, Gwinnett County police are investigating after a woman was shot to death in Grayson yesterday morning. So officers were called to Wilkerson Way around 8:42 in the morning after a neighbor discovered the body inside the home. Investigators learned that the woman inside the home had been shot. Now, detectives remain at the scene for several hours here to comb through some evidence, and during their investigation, police were observed removing several large bags from the house. Authorities also towed away a white car that was parked directly in front of the home. So police did confirm again that one person has been taken into custody in relation to this shooting death, but they have not yet released the identities of the victim or the individual currently in custody, nor have they detailed any active charges. But residents in the neighborhood note that the area is typically quiet and safe, with children frequently playing in the community, visiting local parks and walking to nearby shops. So they were surprised that this took place. But again, what a scary situation for this woman, her family, and the neighbors in this community. We'll keep you updated once they release the identities of the suspect and the victim. Well, a Cobb man is getting life without parole for his girlfriend's murder. This Cobb County man convicted of murdering his roller skating influencer girlfriend, again, will spend the rest of his life behind bars without parole. A Cobb County judge handed down the maximum sentence to 24-year-old Eugene Louis Jaquez, ordering him to serve life without parole plus 20 years. Now, the sentence follows a trial where a jury found him guilty on several charges, including malice murder. The case dates back to the brutal 2023 death of 22-year-old Beauty Couch. She was well known as a popular Instagrammer and roller skating influencer. So investigators determined that Couch had been stabbed multiple times here. Her body was later discovered discarded in a wooded area located near her mother's burning car. Again, 24-year-old Eugene Louis Jaquez will spend his life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 20 years. Well, May 25th, 2020, it's a day many remember like it was yesterday. Today marks exactly 6 years since the murder of George Floyd, and this year, for the first time, the anniversary falls on the same day of the week as May 5th, 2020, which is Monday today. 38th and Chicago is the site, the location where he took his last breath. Floyd's uncle, Solwyn Jones, walked George Floyd Square with Fox 9 in Minneapolis. And for him, this place is deeply emotional. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Walking through this area, what goes through your mind?
You know, thoughts of all these people's lives that have been taken because of one reason or another. I was sitting in front of a television watching this black man getting assaulted by the police and me not knowing who it was. And my sister, you know, called me and she said, "Did you see what they did to Harry?"
And again, you just heard from George Floyd's uncle there. Both Solwyn Jones and the woman standing next to him, who is his aunt, Angela Harrelson, say they still remember every detail of that day. So Fox 9 asked them what has changed since former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin put his knee on their nephew's neck. And here's what they had to say about this.
Not enough change, but as long as we keep fighting, as long as this event keeps happening,
yes,
and showing unity.
When we get to the point with all of this, where we don't have to say the words Black Lives Matter, then that's when we know we have arrived.
People have their thoughts about who he was and what he was, and I always come back to the 9 minutes and 29 seconds, because the 9 minutes and 29 seconds is what impacted the whole world.
And as you just heard from both his aunt and uncle, they want to make sure his name is remembered and that social change continues. This will also be the last anniversary before George Floyd Square changes physically. Next month, construction is set to begin on the city's flexible open street design. Well, let's talk about the war in the Middle East. A deal to end the war in Iran and reopen that critical Strait of Hormuz is allegedly close to being finalized. That's according to President Trump, who posted about negotiations on Truth Social over the weekend. U.S. Secretary Marco Rubio, Secretary of State that is, also says the U.S. is in a good place to get a deal done with Iran to end the war, but there is no rush. So Secretary Rubio continuing his trip to India today to re-engage the key American ally on trade and technology. I remember speaking about this over the weekend, and this trip is really focused on not only, negotiations with Iran, but also on building a better relationship with India. So he is set to participate in meetings with India, Japan, and Australia. Secretary Rubio says components for a deal with Iran do look solid, but President Trump isn't willing to push it fast to risk a bad deal. Rubio also says peace in Lebanon with Israel and Hezbollah is a separate issue because of Iran's control of Hezbollah, and on Pakistan's role as a mediating influence to end the U.S.-Iran conflict. Rubio says India isn't expressing any concerns over it. Let's take a listen.
So we have what I think is a pretty solid thing on the table in terms of their ability to open up the straits, get the straits open, enter into a very real, significant, time-limited negotiation on the nuclear matters, and hopefully we can pull it off. It has a lot of support in the Gulf. It has a lot of support globally. Every country that we've walked through it understands it's not just very reasonable, but it's the right thing for the world to get done. As the president said, he's not in a hurry. He's not going to make a bad deal. I mean, the president's not going to make a bad agreement. So let's see what happens. We're going to give diplomacy every chance to succeed before we explore the alternatives. We've had weekly meetings now and ongoing daily engagements between the government of Lebanon and Israel. The problem is not Lebanon and Israel. The problem is Hezbollah. Just last night, Hezbollah put out a statement calling for the overthrow of the Lebanese government. And it just reminds you who you're dealing with here. By the way, an Iranian proxy, 100% Iranian proxy. And as long as Lebanon exists with armaments, as long as an armed Lebanon, as long as an armed Hezbollah exists, it's going to be hard to achieve peace in Lebanon because they're victimizing the people of Lebanon. They're not just attacking Israel. They are victimizing the people of Lebanon, who are paying a tremendous price because of Hezbollah.
Can I ask you about Pakistan? The role that Pakistan has. Do the Indians voice any concern to you? What do you tell them?
No. I mean, look, they're concerned about the things they're always concerned about, obviously. India is always pointing to the fact that there are armed terrorist groups operating from Pakistani territory that target India. They're always concerned about that. But as far as the role they played as a mediator and a facilitator in the Iran situation, it never came up. I don't think that they would complain about that. I mean, their issues with Pakistan are different.
Again, you just heard from Secretary Rubio there speaking about negotiations. President Trump saying this past weekend that an agreement with Iran was, quote, largely negotiated with details coming soon. The Quad 4 meetings between the U.S., India, Japan, and Australia are expected to take place in New Delhi tomorrow. Time right now is 2:49. When we return, we'll talk about a Memorial Day ceremony happening in Marietta, and we'll have our Tara Jabor live to talk about what happened there. Welcome back. Today, the National Memorial Day Association of Georgia held its 80th ceremony in Marietta. This takes place every year at the Marietta National Cemetery. Fox 5's Tara Jabor joins us live with all the details. Tara, how did they honor our fallen heroes today?
Well, Ariel, over 100 people came out here to the Marietta National Cemetery, of course, to honor the men and women who lost their lives in the military. And here at this cemetery, there are 18,000 soldiers that are buried here, and they fought in various wars dating back to the Revolutionary War. So as you can see behind me, it's a very strong visual, and there's a flag at every single one of these headstones, and we're told that the Cub Scouts are the ones who put a flag at every one of these headstones over the weekend, of course, to prepare for the ceremony today. Now, we heard from various speakers, of course, who shared memories and stories about what Memorial Day means to them. And earlier this afternoon, we spoke to David Moore. He's the head of the National Association of Memorial Day in Georgia. They're the ones that put this event together every year. And he told us that this holiday is different than any other. Let's take a listen.
This day is different from July the 4th. It's different from Veterans Day. Those are days more of celebration, hot dogs, fireworks. But today we solemnly remember the people that fought for our freedoms. The cost of freedom is not free. And the cost of freedom is literally buried in the ground. And you see it here amongst our 18,000 soldiers that are represented. Every conflict that we have been in, from the Revolutionary War to the global war on terror.
Now, since the ceremony has ended, we have seen people still coming here to the cemetery to remember and again honor those men and women who lost their lives. Coming up later tonight on Fox 5 News, we spoke to some people that attended, and you'll hear what they had to say. Ariel.
Tara, thanks so much for joining us to talk about this. Looking forward to the story that we all will see on Fox 5 later tonight. Tara, thanks. Guys, let's continue talking about this because it's so important. So the oldest living Pearl Harbor survivor reflects on his life and legacy at the ripe age of 106 years old. I would love to sit down with him myself and speak with him. This is such an incredible opportunity that our Fox sisters, our Fox News sisters, stations, that is, I got to speak with him. So Freeman Johnson worked as a fireman during the Pearl Harbor attack, spending most of his time deep below the waterline in engineering spaces while serving on the USS St. Louis. So he says he was below deck when Japan launched the surprise attack in 1941. Freeman was among the around 87,000 troops who were stationed in Hawaii at the time. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We've been to a couple of schools, and the kids ask, were you scared? You're not scared. You're too busy to be scared. And besides, you don't know what you're scared of. You can't see anything. What are you afraid of? There aren't many left. Before there were thousands. So it really didn't matter. But now, because there's only 10 of us left, it's a big deal. Most important thing to me was getting married, having kids.
That is Freeman Johnson there, the oldest Pearl Harbor survivor, reflecting on his life. He is 106 years old. And again, our Fox sister station got to speak with him. After Pearl Harbor, Johnson helped commission the USS Iowa and transport President Franklin D. Roosevelt to secure Soviet Union Premier Joseph Stalin's commitment to enter the Pacific War, and convince British Prime Minister Winston Churchill to begin the D-Day invasion. He also watched Japan's surrender while aboard the ship in Tokyo Bay. So what an incredible life. Again, I would love to sit down with him. I have family who served in the military. And so it's so cool to be able to hear these stories. Again, he has done so much in his lifetime, convincing British Prime Minister Winston Churchill to begin the D-Day invasion, serving in the military during the surprise attack from Japan in 1941. What an incredible story. Now, the origins of Memorial Day stem back to the aftermath of the Civil War. It was originally called Decoration Day, if you didn't know that, in keeping with the tradition of placing flowers, flags, and wreaths on the graves of deceased soldiers. It officially became a federal holiday and named Memorial Day back in 1971. And as the nation honors the military members who died while serving their country and who've paid the ultimate sacrifice, a number of psychology experts say it's important not to forget the family members tragically left behind, citing how they might be struggling with their mental health amidst services and tributes to fallen heroes. And while Memorial Day is different from Veterans Day, which honors all personnel who have served, Dr. Katie Bars with the University of Denver says this federal holiday can still be very triggering for current and former service members as well as their loved ones. Experts also cite how this Memorial Day takes place as tensions remain high across the Middle East. Let's take a listen.
Anytime there's an act of conflict, it is triggering for other veterans who have served in similar conflicts, right? It can increase people's depression, symptoms of PTSD, sometimes substance use. We know that about 17 veterans per day die by suicide. Military and veteran families experience a unique set of challenges. So oftentimes they experience multiple moves. Military and veteran children experience things like increased academic challenges, sometimes behavioral challenges, and then sometimes attachment type challenges due to their family member being deployed.
Some important information there from Dr. Katie Bars with the University of Denver. Mental health professionals saying it's critical to ensure the proper support is in place for military personnel and their families, especially those living in rural areas where it could be underserved. Time right now is 2:59. When we return at 3, we'll have more coverage of ceremonies honoring our fallen soldiers and also a check of some of our local headlines. Welcome to Fox 5 News Live. I'm Jasmine Cornell. Thanks for joining our news conversation here this Memorial Day at 3, where we're streaming here on Fox Local and on TikTok, YouTube, and some of your favorite social media sites. It's Memorial Day, like I said, but let's talk something important here. So many people were out on the roads over the weekend, but DUI arrests and fatal crashes climbed overnight across Georgia during the holiday weekend, despite stepped-up statewide patrols. Fox 5's Annie Mapp joins us live with the numbers here. And Annie, state officials made more than 215 DUI arrests, they say.
Hi, Jasmine. Good afternoon. Latest numbers from the Georgia Department of Public Safety show 259 people have been arrested for driving under the influence so far this Memorial Day weekend. Now, of course, we know Memorial Day weekend, the travel period runs until midnight, so it is possible that those numbers could rise some more. According to DPS, out of those 259 people arrested, 22 were also involved in crashes. The agency is reporting 9 fatal crashes across Georgia. However, it is unknown if any of those involved impaired drivers. DPS numbers from Memorial Day weekend last year show 400 people were arrested for driving impaired. The agency encourages people to plan for a sober driver or alternate ride if they plan to consume a substance that could affect their judgment. I did speak to a man whose son was killed by a drunk driver. He's now a national ambassador for Mothers Against Drunk Driving and says the actions are selfish.
A preventable accident put my life and my whole family's life in such turmoil. And since then, I've kind of been dedicated to being the voice that Danny doesn't have anymore and speaking for MAD and trying to save lives.
Again, the Memorial Day travel period goes until midnight. The Department of Public Safety says it has increased patrol statewide so that they can keep the roads safe and also catch people who may be showing these dangerous driving behaviors. Jasmine.
Annie, thanks so much for joining us to talk about this. We'll continue monitoring those numbers. Let's talk about the boating incidents happening across Georgia as well. So from the roads to the lakes here, the first round of numbers for the Memorial Day holiday weekend are in from the Georgia game wardens. Officials report at least one person was hurt in a boating incident in Gainesville. And there was also one BUI or boating under the influence incident there and 2 in Albany. So there's 3 total. And then separately on Lake Hartwell, a 7-year-old child was taken to the hospital yesterday after sustaining a leg injury. The child was injured after being thrown from a personal watercraft. Officials say an 18-year-old operator of that watercraft was cited by authorities for an unregistered vessel and a lack of boating education. Game wardens did confirm, though, that alcohol was not a factor in this incident. So far, only 3 boating under the influence, 1 in the Gainesville area and 2 in Albany. But remember, just not for this holiday weekend or for this holiday, but also for the summer, if you're, operating a boat, watch out for other boaters and also make sure you're not boating under the influence. And speaking of Lake Hartwell, a high-speed chase involving a stolen car on Sunday ended with a suspect leaping into the lake in an attempt to escape law enforcement. And this suspect here did a lot to evade police. Let's continue with the details. So according to Georgia State Patrol, a white Subaru was reported stolen, and that's on your screen, early yesterday from the Ridge Road area in Hart County. Now, a trooper later located that vehicle on Highway 17 near Pleasant Hill Road in Franklin County. The trooper attempted a traffic stop, but the driver immediately took off down Girard Road and onto Georgia Highway 328. Officials say he was speeding, exceeding 100 miles per hour here, which is very dangerous, as you all know. The chase reportedly came to an end when the driver lost control of the car while attempting to negotiate a bridge curve near mile marker 3. So the vehicle traveled onto the shoulder, crashed into a guardrail, and came to a stop straddling the southbound fog lane. So a lot happening here. Authorities say that after all of this, after crashing, the driver got out of the car and ran away, jumping into Lake Hartwell and then swimming toward the middle of a nearby cove to evade law enforcement. So responding agencies quickly established a perimeter around the area, and a Hart County Sheriff's deputy, along with a Livonia police officer, used a nearby citizen's boat to reach the suspect in the water and safely take him into custody. That suspect, identified as 29-year-old Livonia resident Sean Austin Mays, he was taken to a local hospital with minor injuries, and he's now in custody of the Hart County Sheriff's Office. He faces multiple charges here, as you know, including felony theft by taking, felony entering an auto, attempting to elude police, and several other charges here. But what a crazy situation here, where the suspect led police on a high-speed chase, and then after that, he ended up jumping into the lake here, officials having to use someone else's boat who was on the lake to safely take the suspect into custody. Moving now to the airport, let's talk about this huge story here. Atlanta is now part of the federal government's expanded Ebola response. World health leaders closely monitoring an outbreak of Ebola. And now Hartsfield-Jackson is one of 3 designated airports that will have enhanced health screening for passengers returning from high-risk areas. So Fox 5's Kevin Stewart joins us live with what you need to know if you are flying through the airport. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Jasmine, if you are traveling through the airport, you should be fine. This really applies to, and only applies to, American citizens who've been in the hot zone. We're talking about the DRC, Uganda, and South Sudan, one of 3 airports. We're talking about Dulles in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Later on this week, Bush International in Houston, and here in Atlanta. Atlanta was the selection here, Hartsfield-Jackson, because of the success we have had in this type of screening. The screening is going to involve temperature checks and a detailed questionnaire. And if you're cleared to leave the airport, wherever your final destination is, you're going to have to be monitored for 21 days at your local health department. They'll be checking in with you. You'll have to report your temperature twice a day. If you have any type of diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding, some of those are the signs of Ebola. Now, we've had a chance to talk to one gentleman who's local, who went to Scotland and came through the airport today to try to get a sense of what he sees inside, because people are taken away to a special area. I wanted to know if he had seen anything, plus a clip from the CDC news conference on this. Take a listen.
Did you see any activity? Because I know they're testing, going through screening for Ebola or anything. Did you see anything that looked like that up there?
No, all we saw was just a sign that said if you've been in certain countries, be aware of symptoms.
We are providing the traveling public an assessment and next steps regarding their onward movement based on that screening set of questions and evaluation. And I will also add that this is a process that CDC, in conjunction with other federal partners like Customs and Border Patrol, have instituted multiple times successfully in conjunction with state and local health departments.
All right, so you can hear there the CDC is feeling pretty confident. It's worth noting that this strain of Ebola is rare, and there is no vaccine for it. That is one of the reasons why people are so concerned with this, as it spreads from Central Africa into Eastern Africa, and why this is being monitored. It is hard to spread, unlike, say, COVID, which transmitted very easily. This one, you have to be in pretty close contact, exchanging body fluids, so spit, things like that. But this is definitely something that people should be aware of, but not panic. That's what the health experts are telling us. Jasmine?
Kevin, thanks for providing this update here. Do they say how long they'll be doing this enhanced screening?
Yeah, this is going to be for 30 days, and then they'll be able to evaluate going further on.
Okay, got it. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us to talk about this. We'll see your report later on Fox 5. Guys, let's continue talking about the airport here. Parking at Hartsfield-Jackson is expected to get a lot better, which is some good news. The airport's new South Red Deck is set to open on June 1st. So pretty soon here, adding more than 7,000 parking spaces for travelers. And this is something that you should be aware of if you are traveling through the Atlanta airport this summer. Airport officials say the new deck will feature a variety of things like ticketless entry and exit, more than 100 electric vehicle charging stations, premium parking options, they say, and direct access to the terminal. The expansion comes as Atlanta's airport continues to handle record passenger traffic, with millions of travelers passing through the world's busiest airport every month. So officials say the goal here is to make the experience faster and more convenient for you, especially during peak travel times and holiday rushes like this weekend or this past weekend, this Memorial Day travel period. The South Red Deck opens to the public again on June 1st. And let's go ahead and talk weather. We've been speaking about the rainy weather the past few days, and I believe that the rain will continue to impact us a little bit. So let's go ahead and bring in our meteorologist, Alex Forbes, to talk about what you can expect.
A flood watch in effect for the afternoon and evening here across really most of metro Atlanta and North Georgia, but confined really north and west of the city, right? Hall County over to Forsyth County, Fulton, Cobb, Paulding over towards Douglas, Coweta, and Heard counties all included, and then it extends back up towards the Rome area. The reason why we have a flood watch is because rainfall rates could be upwards of about 2 inches an hour here as we work our way through the afternoon hours. A lot of rich tropical moisture in our air to work with. Now, even though the flood watch is only for those specific counties, to be realistic, we all have an equal chance of flash flooding here into the evening hours tonight. Locally heavy downpours. I would particularly keep an eye on places that are susceptible to poor drainage, right? If you know of a spot where if you get a quick inch of rain, it floods, those are the types of spots that I would expect to run into problems, not necessarily looking for too much in the way of river or stream flooding. It's possible that one or two of those get into minor flood stage, but nothing major here across the metro Atlanta area. So for the remainder of the day today, looking at temperatures, really not changing all that much. We're in the upper 70s now. We'll cool back down into the mid 70s and 60s through the evening, but a decent chance of storms here through the late afternoon and into the evening hours as we track those moving up from the south, and then that gives way to just some scattered showers later on this evening. So let's talk about the details here. The storms moving in the next couple of hours, crossing I-20 about 6 p.m. These are where your locally heavy downpours are going to occur, and that would really pose the flash flooding risk. That's going to continue to lift towards the north, and by the time we get towards 11 p.m., we are just left with those scattered showers. Through the overnight, definitely hanging on to the cloud cover, and then for tomorrow, we're going to do something similar. But instead of a south to north motion, I would be looking for more of a southwest to northeast kind of motion with the showers and storms, and particularly south of I-85, that's probably where your heavier rain threat is going to be through Tuesday afternoon. On into Wednesday here, not quite as wet, waking up to some scattered showers, and then into the afternoon, yes, there will be storms around. It just doesn't look like there's going to be as many of them, and that's going to allow the temperatures to warm a bit. So here is the rainfall potential, we'll call it. And I don't want you to look at the exact city and the exact number. Instead, recognize the pattern here across northern Georgia. There will be a couple instances where over the next 2 days, people just miss out on the rain. 0.3, 0.4. Numbers like that will be possible. Most everybody should see about an inch, maybe even 2 inches of rain, and then embedded within those areas, there will be these isolated, orange swaths of higher rainfall totals. One out near Augusta, another in, say, by the South Metro. And there's no rhyme or reason necessarily to where that's going to set up. Just know that there will be swaths of higher rainfall totals, much like we saw yesterday here in parts of Cobb and Cherokee counties. Now, one thing that's for certain, the humidity over the next couple of days, it is going to remain tropical here across northern Georgia. In fact, we're just going to call it straight up sticky, and that is going to yield daily shower and storm chances. Even on Thursday, where we're trending a bit drier, there's still a decent amount of activity across northern Georgia. Then we get into Friday, A decent rain chance there Saturday. Yeah, that just doesn't look great. And then Sunday, backing off the rain chance a bit, only about 20% here across the metro area. That was the European model. This is the GFS. Its counterpart, it says about the same thing as we work our way into the weekend. So the 7-day rainfall forecast, widespread 3 to 5 inches of rain when all is said and done between now and next Monday. The numbers I just showed you on that other map, that was just the next 48 hours. This is now really the next 7 days here across the metro Atlanta area. So here is your Fox 5 Storm Team 7-day forecast. 81 tomorrow. 83 on Wednesday, 86 on Thursday. That's probably the driest day of the work week ahead, but the driest of the next 7 comes on Sunday. Still hanging on to a 20% chance of rain there as high temperatures come back down into the 70s for the final weekend of May.
All right, Alex, thanks for that update there on weather. Let's get into this local story here. A woman found shot to death inside a Grayson home. This is out of Gwinnett County. Police there investigating after this woman was found yesterday morning. So officers were called to Wilkerson Way around 8:42 in the morning yesterday after a neighbor discovered the body inside the home. So investigators learned that the woman inside the home had been shot, and detectives remain on the scene for several hours to figure out what led up to the shooting. And during their investigation, police were observed removing several large bags from the house. Authorities also towed away a white car that was parked directly in front of the home. Police confirmed that one person has been taken into custody in relation to the shooting. Now, they have not released the identities of the victim or the suspect in custody, nor have they detailed any active charges. But residents in the neighborhood note that the area is typically quiet and safe, so they told us that they were shocked that this all happened here in Grayson. But we'll continue to follow the story and bring you updates as we learn more about the victim and the person they have in custody. A Cobb County man convicted of murdering his roller skating influencer girlfriend will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Cobb County judge handing down the maximum sentence to 24-year-old Eugene Louis Jaquez, ordering him to serve life without parole plus 20 years. The sentence follows a trial where a jury found him guilty on several charges, including malice murder. Now, this case dates back to 2023, the brutal death of 22-year-old Beauty Couch, who was a well-known influencer, a popular Instagrammer, and she was a skater as well. Investigators determined that Couch had been stabbed multiple times. Her body was later found discarded in a wooded area located near her mother's car. Now, again, 24-year-old Eugene Louis Jaquez, who is on your screen now, will spend his life in prison without the possibility of parole plus an additional 20 years. Well, May 25th, 2020, it's a day many remember like it was yesterday. Today marks 6 years since the murder of George Floyd, and this year, for the first time, the anniversary falls on the same day of the week as May 25th, 2020, a Monday. So 38th in Chicago is the location where he took his last breath. Floyd's uncle Solon Jones walked George Floyd Square with Fox 9 in Minneapolis, and for him, this place is deeply emotional. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Walking through this area, what goes through your mind?
You know, thoughts of all these people's lives that have been taken because of one reason or another. I was sitting in front of a television watching this black man getting assaulted by the police and me not knowing who it was. And my sister, called me and she said, "Did you see what they did to Perry?"
Again, you just heard from Solon Jones, that is the uncle of George Floyd. Both Solon Jones and Angela Harrelson, which is his aunt, say they still remember every detail of that day. Fox 9 asked them what has changed since former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin put his knee on their nephew's neck, and here's what they had to say.
Not enough change, but as long as we keep fighting, as long as this event keeps happening, yes, and showing unity.
When we get to the point with all of this, where we don't have to say the words Black Lives Matter, then that's when we know we have arrived.
people have their thoughts about who he was and what he was, and I always come back to the 9 minutes and 29 seconds, because the 9 minutes and 29 seconds is what impacted the whole world.
And as you just heard from both his aunt and uncle, they want to make sure his name is remembered and that social change continues. This will also be the last anniversary before George Floyd Square changes physically. Next month, construction is set to begin on the city's flexible open street design. Well, new details today on the man who opened fire outside the White House late Saturday and was later gunned down by Secret Service. Let's take a look at the scene here. A scary moment at the White House on Saturday. Reporters ducking for cover after hearing what sounded like gunshots. Then they ran to the briefing room as the building was placed on lockdown. The president was at the White House too, but officials say he was unharmed during this incident and continued working through the evening in the Oval Office. The Secret Service says, per a preliminary investigation, a man pulled out a gun as he walked towards a checkpoint and started shooting at officers around 6 p.m. The agents shot back and hit the suspect, who later died at a local hospital. A bystander was also shot during the incident, but it's unclear whether they were initially hit by the suspect or during crossfire. So federal sources say the suspect was identified as 21-year-old Nasir Best from Maryland, and Best reportedly had encountered Secret Service at least twice last year and had a history of mental health issues. And apparently he's known for walking around the White House asking how to gain access at different gates. Court records from D.C. also state Best was charged in July with trying to enter a restricted area near the complex. Authorities say Best told them that he was Jesus Christ and that he wanted to get arrested. Best was also detained by Secret Service the previous month for allegedly flagging down agents and making threats. So again, officials saying that he has a history of doing things like this. This incident on Saturday happening just about 1 month after the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting. And we'll keep you updated on this situation as it develops. Time is 3:23. When we return, we'll talk about this huge issue out at the Chattahoochee River. Thousands of fish suffocating to death. We'll let you know why next. Welcome back to our news conversation here at Fox 5 News Live. I'm Jasmine Cornell. Take a listen to this story here. An unprecedented fish kill has devastated local wildlife after thousands of fish suffocated to death in the Chattahoochee River. Fox 5's Ray Urena joins us live with more on this. And Ray, what is the city of Atlanta, what are officials, doing to address this?
Yeah, right now, Jasmine, it's a little too early from the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper. They say it's a little too early to know exactly what the remediation of this event could be, but they do say that as far as the dead fish that are in the river, they say they're going to allow nature to take its course when it comes to clean up those dead fishes. But right now, we're on Peachtree Creek. This is in northwest Atlanta. I'm going to step out of the light so you can see exactly where we're at. And the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper says that this is where that fish kill started in the last few days. It started on Friday. They say it's from here. This kill zone started right here with the Chattahoochee River in the background there, and it stretches at least 20 miles downstream. That's the size of this kill zone, as they're calling it here. But for those people watching that are wondering, what is a fish kill? Well, a fish kill most commonly happens when the oxygen levels in bodies of water like the Chattahoochee, that happens when those oxygen levels plummet and drop, and it causes these fish not to be able to breathe. So they end up suffocating to death. And this in particular fish kill, according to the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, was caused by multiple factors. The ongoing drought, we had a sewage overflow, and we also had polluted runoff that can be traced back, if you remember, to that massive rainstorm on Wednesday that flooded parts of Atlanta, including the downtown connector. They say that there is a tunnel right where we're at on Peachtree Creek that apparently overflowed as a result of all that, and all that runoff and overflow has a very low amount of oxygen. So what happens, according to the Riverkeeper, is that you have that low oxygen runoff and sewage overflow mixing in with the water, and what was coming in from the runoff, the Riverkeeper says, was more in terms of volume than the water that was already in the river, which is low due to the ongoing drought. Now, the Riverkeeper talked about the drainage tunnel that I mentioned earlier here in Peachtree Creek. I want to listen to this clip from our interview talking about why this happened and some of the questions that they still have left over from city officials.
Been on the river my entire life. I've never seen a fish kill this massive. We're talking thousands of dead fish for mile after mile after mile. A sewer and stormwater infrastructure overflowed combined sewage and stormwater into the Chattahoochee River and caused a huge dissolved oxygen crash, which suffocated all of the fish.
It's crazy, but to be fair, I'm going to give the city of Atlanta some credit. They have been working for the last 30 years to try to make it better. They just need to work a little harder. We love walking around Atlanta, and part of our economic viability is nature and trees, and it's people want to walk around in nature like we're doing today and not smell and see dead fish. So World Cup's coming, no dead fish. That's bad.
All right, it doesn't seem like we had that clip that I was referencing available, but according to the Riverkeeper, there is a drainage tunnel that's very long. It's about 15 miles long, and that acts kind of as like a storage tank of sorts. So it appears to them that drainage tunnel overflowed during the course of this event. The purpose of this drainage tunnel, they say, it's so that water that is collected from the runoff from highways and stuff like that, it's collected there and it sits there until it can be retreated and pumped back into the Chattahoochee at a later date. And apparently the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper says that's not what happened in this case. So there are questions related to what happened there. But the city officials tell us that they and state officials have started their own investigations into this. And the Riverkeeper says they will be meeting with them on Thursday to discuss this fish kill and how to prevent it from happening again. Jasmine?
Ray, thanks for sharing this information with us. Some very important information as far as boaters. I know today's not a good day to go out on the lake, but when are they able to still take their boats out in situations like this?
you can still, Jasmine, but the Riverkeeper is advising people to avoid this stretch of the Chattahoochee from Peachtree Creek here in northwest Atlanta downstream for now while they get more rain and the system flushes itself out. It's important to note that the Chattahoochee National Recreation Area, which is upstream of this, was not affected by that fish kill. So if you are taking people up there, that area was not affected. Jasmine.
Right. Thanks so much for, talking about this with us. I know many people have questions on this story here. So thanks for providing an update out of the Chattahoochee River there. We'll check in with you a little later. Guys, let's continue our coverage now of the ceremonies being held across the Atlanta area to honor our fallen heroes. This one's out of Marietta here. And again, veterans gathered this morning to honor fallen service members here out of Marietta. And we're going to take a listen to Representative Barry Loudermilk speak. He spoke, and he was one of the speakers at this ceremony.
For the honor of being here today, and thank all of you for your attendance. Your attendance here today, as well as Americans all across our great nation, is so vitally important. Not just to remember those who gave their last full measure of devotion, but to do something that is equally important, is to commit that this nation of freedom will continue. In fact, Abraham Lincoln addressed this in the Gettysburg battlefield in his famous Gettysburg Address, because our responsibility of Memorial Day is twofold. He said it is important that we recognize those who gave that full last measure of devotion, but also that we, the living, must dedicate ourselves that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that this nation, this government of the people, by the people, and for the people will not perish from the earth. Ronald Reagan reminded us that freedom is only one generation away from extinction, that every generation is responsible to defend and fight for that freedom. When you look at what these two great leaders from America are telling us, is that our Memorial Day ceremony is to remember and to dedicate. Thus, our flag that was raised from half-mast is to symbolize those ideas. Up until noon, it's at half-mast, in remembrance of those who dedicated their lives for our freedom, but then we raise it to its full position to show the world that we are still dedicated to the cause of preserving freedom and liberty. This, as has been mentioned already, this Memorial Day is very special because it falls upon the year of our semi-quincentennial, our 250th anniversary as a constitutional republic. This is extremely significant. Most people don't understand how significant this anniversary is, because we have survived and have thrived longer than any other government that was a constitutional republic has ever existed in this nation. In fact, the average length of time of a constitutional republic is 7 to 11 years. And here we are, 250, far beyond what anyone ever expected. And that begs the question, why? What is so different about the United States of America, our form of government? Well, it's important that we know that, and it's important to know why. You see, my father, the World War II veteran, he used to tell me, son, it's important to know what you believe, but it's more important to know why you believe what you believe. And my daughter, Christiana, she speaks quite often on this idea of why, and her program is Know Your Why. Not just what you do, but why you do it, because as my father said, if you know why you believe what you believe, you can defend it. Well, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen throughout history have understood the why. My father, the World War II veteran, as was mentioned, landed at D-Day. And a few years ago, my staff presented me with a gift, and it was a photograph of the D-Day landing taken from inside one of the landing craft, one of the Higgins boats. And for years, that picture has been hanging in my office at home. And I often just look at that picture. Here are these young men who have just stepped off this landing craft. In the distance, you can already see bodies laying on the beach. You can see the explosions. But all you see are the back of their heads because they're moving forward. I remember my dad had several picture books from World War II, and he had one that was just on D-Day. He never told me much at all about his own experiences because I believed they were too difficult. As a medic, he saw the worst of humanity. But he told me a lot about other people and things that they did. And I would look through these picture books, and there was a picture that was taken while some of these soldiers were still in the landing craft. And again, all you see is the back of their helmets. And I remember as a child, I used to look at that and just wonder, what were they thinking? As I sit in my office at home and I look at that picture of where they have actually stepped off the landing craft and they're waist deep in water, I still wonder, what were they thinking? These young high school students that posted the colors are just barely younger than what these men were. The average age of those that were on those Higgins crafts was 17 to 22 years old. Today, that would be our Generation Z. And you think about the future that they had ahead of them. But yet, they're on this landing craft. They are willing to step on to the beach. And I've wondered what was going through their mind. What was that driving factor that made them, they knew what they were getting into. They knew that the likelihood that they would see the sun set on that day was minimal. They knew that most of them would be killed, many before they even reached that beach. But what was driving them? What was driving them to step forward? And then one day as I was just sitting and I was staring at that picture, it dawned on me, I'm asking the wrong question. I shouldn't be asking what was going through their head. I should be asking a simpler question.
Again, you just took a look there at the Memorial Day ceremony out of Marietta. Representative Barry Loudermilk of Georgia's 11th District speaking there. And we'll continue to cover these ceremonies throughout our stream today. Up next, we'll take a look at President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, who spoke in D.C. at a ceremony there. We'll be right back. Welcome back. President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance participating in a wreath-laying ceremony today and delivering remarks at Arlington National Cemetery in our nation's capital. Let's take a listen to what both had to say as they honored our fallen troops.
Thank you all, and Mr. President, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, all of our honored guests, but especially our Gold Star families. I want to say just a few things today because I believe that the most important lesson of Memorial Day is perhaps that all of us owe a debt. That we owe a debt to the people who went overseas and gave their lives that the United States might be prosperous and peaceful and free. That we owe a debt to the people who put on a uniform knowing they might never come back. And indeed, today we pay tribute to those who never came back. I think like a lot of veterans, and we're joined by so many of you, sometimes Memorial Day is the most somber and the most sacred of the days on the American calendar. People will come up to our veterans and say things like Happy Memorial Day, or may you have a blessed Memorial Day. And those of us who served know acutely that today is not for all veterans as much as we love all of our veterans. Today is for those veterans who put on the uniform, who went overseas, and who never came home. When I think about the debt that we owe them, I think about all the things that they gave, which can't be measured in dollars or in the things of this world, but are measured in things like weddings that they never got to attend, children that they never saw grow up, daughters and sons that they never got to hug and kiss again, loved ones, husbands and wives. They traded every moment, from the moment where they gave their lives to the moment where they would ultimately meet their natural end. Every single one of those moments they gave up that the United States might remain the freest and best country in the entire world. What an amazing thing. What an amazing gift. On this Memorial Day, I just ask two things of all of our fellow Americans. The first is that we be the very best version of ourselves in honor of those who gave everything that this nation might be worthy. To all the husbands and fathers, that we be the best husbands and dads that we can. To all the mothers and wives, that they be the best moms and wives that they can. To the sons and daughters, that they be the very best version of themselves. And that second, we always remember that every moment that we're able to enjoy with our loved ones, everything that gives our life and our nation meaning and purpose, was given to us often by total strangers who laid down their lives that this might be the best nation in the history of the world. And finally, to our Gold Star families, I hope you know that I will never forget. I'll never forget your loved ones, that the good life that I have and that my family have is fundamentally because you paid a debt that I can never repay. I'll never forget their smiling faces. I'll never forget their skill and bravery in battle. I'll never forget that all the moments that I'm able to have with my family, they're not able to have with theirs. And most of all, I know from every American across every political persuasion that we love you, we're grateful to you, we're proud of you, and we commit to make the United States of America the very best version of itself. And that is how we honor those who gave their lives to this country. And without further ado, it is my great honor to introduce the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief of these United States, President Donald J. Trump. Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. What a beautiful day, as it turns out.
It's just perfect. We'd rather have this than the heat. It's just beautiful. It's always beautiful being here. My 5th time, and it never changes. Vice President Vance, Secretary Hegseth, Chairman Kane, members of the Cabinet, members of the United States Armed Forces, veterans, and fellow citizens. Today, here at Arlington, a very special place that how burial grounds, battlefields across the country and around the world, we unite in solemn observance. With reverent hearts, we honor those who fell so that our republic might stand, those who died so that our nation could live, those who gave up their sacred light on earth so that the sublime light of American freedom would shine forever and ever. This Memorial Day, we salute them, we exalt them, and we thank them for all that we have and for all that they gave. They gave everything. God bless our fallen heroes. We're joined today by some of those they left behind, our incredible Gold Star families, incredible people. To every person here and across America who holds tight to the memory of a warrior taken from them, we will never, ever forget the ones you loved. Gold Star family members, please stand. Receive our thanks, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. My honor. Less than 6 weeks from now, our nation will reach a historic milestone, 250 years of majestic American independence, something. But it's only right that first we remember the immense sacrifice that has been brought to us and this momentous anniversary year. That's what it is. It's a momentous year. Before we hail the founding, we honor the fallen. Before we celebrate the triumph, we pay the tribute. Before we crown the victory, we count the cost. Today we are reminded that there could be no 4th of July without America's armed forces, and there could be no Independence Day without Memorial Day. We owe our liberty, our self-government, the glories of our history, and our very nation itself to the generations who paid for it with everything they had, the ultimate sacrifice. The first Americans to give their lives in battle fell on April 1775, when 8 patriots were cut down by redcoats. Those guns, they were shot on Lexington Green. They had answered the call to muster against a force 5 times their strength. They said at the time, the greatest in the world, in defense of their cherished rights and their cherished liberty. As the British approached the Massachusetts, militiamen summoned destiny itself, saying,
Again, you just listened to President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance speaking here at this wreath-laying ceremony, delivering remarks at the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C., honoring fallen troops. We'll continue our coverage of this and talk about a ceremony happening in Gwinnett County when we return. Welcome back to Fox 5 News Live. I'm Jasmine Cornell. Gwinnett County hosting their annual Memorial Day ceremony earlier today, honoring 2 fallen police officers. Let's bring in Fox 5's Chris Rosenthal. He has more on how they were honored and how additional officers were honored as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you may have seen this memorial here, the one that's behind me at the Gwinnett County Justice Center. Been here about 20 years or so, meant to commemorate and to, you know, pay tribute and honor to fallen soldiers and fallen officers, fallen firefighters who have lost their lives in the line of duty, those who were from Gwinnett or had a Gwinnett County connection. And they today, in addition to honoring all 700 names here, inducted 2 names into this wall here. I'm going to show you right now. David Rose and Pradeep Tamang. These 2 were 2 officers that were killed. One, Pradeep was killed earlier this year in a fraud call to a hotel in Stone Mountain. The 25-year-old lost his life in that call, and another officer was shot. And then David Rose, he, you may remember the CDC shooting that happened, and he was killed in that. 33 years old, but he was a DeKalb County officer, but he had ties here to Gwinnett County. And so these officers were honored today. Family was on hand, and as well as some other police officers, some veterans were there, and there were some really poignant comments from some of the leadership from both DeKalb County, speaking for David Rose, and then Gwinnett County, speaking about Mr. Tamang. Let's take a listen.
Some people make an impression immediately, and David Rose was one of those people. Even before the academy officially began, during orientation itself, I recognized something different about him. Every recruit arrives with their own strengths, their own story, and their own reason for wanting to wear a badge. But David stood apart early on, not because he demanded attention, but because of the way he carried himself. He was well-spoken, calm, confident, without arrogance, and possessed a quiet determination that naturally drew the training staff's attention toward him. Without hesitation, he was quickly selected as the class leader for the 138th Police Academy. Over the course of the demanding 28-week academy, David led his classmates with consistency and humility. No matter what the challenge was placed in front of him, whether physical exhaustion, stressful scenarios, long training days, or moments designed to push recruits to their limits, he never appeared rattled.
The origin of his family name, Tamang, comes from Tibetan words meaning horse warrior. It is said that his ancestors patrolled borders and protected lands. Should it surprise anyone that Pradeep was most proud to have a patrol car of his own to travel our roads, protecting our citizens. Pradeep was indeed molded by adversity and shaped by circumstance. From refugee camps to a patrol car in Gwinnett County, he chose a life of service. He carried his family's story, their sacrifices, and their hopes with him every time he put on a badge. So let us not forget that he died pursuing his dreams while protecting the rights of others to pursue theirs. Today, as we add his name to this memorial wall, we affirm that his life, his courage, and his sacrifice will not be forgotten. Police Officer Senior Pradeep Tamang, badge 2741, end of watch, February 1st, 2026.
Yeah, neither of these officers, I think, will be forgotten. None of them on this wall will. Families, members of Pradeep and David Rose were here. Pradeep's fiance was here. She said it's still hard to come here. Of course, that was so fresh. That was in February. And some of the families of some of these other officers were here as well today. Just everyone here to pay tribute. They held it inside because of the weather, but it was still a very nice tribute today. Back to you.
Chris, thanks so much for joining us to talk about this. Glad you were able to bring us this live here, and a very important story here, an important day today to honor all fallen soldiers. Chris, thanks. Guys, and thank you for joining us this Memorial Day. We've covered a lot of stories here, a lot of hard stories to hear about fallen officers, but thanks again for joining us. Our news continues right at 4 on Fox 5.